Good old hydration noises.
Track. I'll do my best.
Do your best. I'll deal with it.
I'll just pay attention to the camera. But we gotta get going.
Yeah,
Because we're all on a time schedule today. But it's okay. Because today we have a very special show of PP1. Can we call it that from now on?
We can.
But should we?
But should you?
I don't know.
The PP1 show
How much trouble are we going to get in?
with your hosts, Falcon, and a special guest from the D&D community here to tell us everything we don't know about Spelljammer. But first, Jordan, welcome to the show. Good to see you, bud.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's good to see you
Hold on,
too.
point at
Or
the
see
TV
you.
if yeah, exactly. If you're watching the video version of the podcast, there he is.
Weird virtual area. So
He's
yeah.
so handsome, especially this part right here.
Yeah.
This part is really handsome.
I mean, that's my favorite part.
That's gonna look so good in the show after. Jordan, what's been going on? Get us caught up with what's been going on in your life, because we played in a campaign a while back, but I haven't really talked to you since then. What are you doing right now?
That was a fun campaign. That was a good character. Strix the Goblin. I
Zix.
think. Zix! I'm playing in a campaign where my character's name is Styx right now, and I combined the two.
Oh,
So. But yeah, Zix the Goblin, that was a lot of fun. And kind of reinvigorated my love of Eberron too, because I hadn't played in an Eberron game, and I was like, oh man, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So now I wanted to run one, but that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
I got post-pandemic, and I wanted to audition for a play, so I'm in a Harry Potter spoof called Puffs right now.
Oh.
This isn't internet like anything, but it's been a lot of fun to like be on stage and do like really stupid improv comedy.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've mostly been doing.
Cool.
That opens in June, and then I'm gonna start a regular D&D session and possibly something for patrons and like online people.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about doing an all drow Underdark campaign set in the Forgotten Realms, which would be like, you're all drow, and are you going to rebel against your houses or like embrace your houses? And there's like a loyalty system that we're going to try and implement. So been talking about that one for a while. That should be a lot of fun. And then D&D wise, I'm playing in a game where I am an artificer named Styx, who has two twin wands, and I'm kind of like a gunslinger. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
All of that offline. So yeah, you'll never see those things, but they're really cool. My DM though works for D&D Beyond, who is now a Wizard employee because he got hired.
Oh yeah, that's right.
D&D Beyond got acquired. So he's like, hey, I work for Wizards now. I was like, you do? That
crazy. Is super cool.
He's very excited about his new jobs and stuff. So we have to be very careful about what we talk about, like just games, because he's like, I don't want to know if you know something, and I'm not going to tell you if I know something. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
We'll keep it that way.
Really quick, Jordan, to give people a little bit of context too. So who is this guy? If you don't know who Jordan is,
who am I?
I've been watching Jordan's D&D lore videos. When did you start your channel? A long time ago, right?
2017. Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
You're one of like my favorite D&D content creators when I first started getting in. That was when I started getting into it. It was 2017. So you're one of my main resources in the beginning days, the early days.
That's awesome.
So definitely go check Jordan out on YouTube. Are you still doing the main channel and the Jocular Junction? That's hard to say.
So Jocular Junction. So I'm Jordan with a silent PH. So if you search JORPHDAN, that is me and my channel. So youtube.com/Jordan with a PH in the middle. Mm-hmm. And I do D&D lore channel, or it's a D&D lore channel. So it's just videos about the established worlds of Dungeons and Dragons. So it started out mostly as Forgotten Realms because I was running games in the Forgotten Realms and didn't know much about it. And I also didn't want to, I was looking for an easier resource than reading like 36 novels to kind of get myself prepped for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started finding source books and stuff, and I like that kind of content, and so I read a whole bunch of it, and then I'm like, I should see if there's YouTube channel like about this, and I couldn't really find one that I liked, so that's why I was like, well, I want to make it. Like if I want this information, there's got to be somebody else out there that finds it interesting. So that's how
Yeah.
it started. And then that was back in the day. I was called Forgotten Realms Explained because I was going to do just Forgotten Realms, but the more I was doing videos, the more I'm like, there's actually lots of cool like monster villains that come from Greyhawk or stories from Eberron, or we're gonna talk about Spelljammer today. Like there's lots of cool campaign settings. And so I branched out and started doing a whole bunch of different stuff. And then through all of that and playing lots of D&D, I got into the OSR, or Old School Renaissance, which is a movement now with 5th edition to play games like they were in the 1970s. So people are like, they're not they're kind of doing their own creative spin on older games. And the OSR is like a really big indie scene. So I started a second channel called Jordan's Jocular Junction, which is basically a place for me to talk about zines and other indie RPGs that aren't Dungeons and Dragons. Because I thought long and hard about combining the two, but I was like, I don't think people want that. Usually people who really like their D&D just want their D&D. So I was like, I'll just make a second channel. It's fun. And it's all for fun. Like I guess everybody wants views and listeners and what have you, but in the end, it's like, if I like the content I'm making, so that's why I make it. So
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
That's such a beautiful sentiment. That's how everybody should make content.
God.
I mean,
It should be.
I mean, Falcon, we're only doing this for money.
Right.
Yeah,
100%.
Exactly.
Speaking of money, ladies and gentlemen. No. Shh. Stop. Wait. It's Gamer Sups.
Oh.
Okay.
You made
Hold
the
on.
joke. We're actually sponsored by a powder company.
We don't want to confuse anybody here. We're not saying any other names.
Oh yeah.
No,
Sorry.
But yeah, no. Absolutely. We are 100% in it for the money, heavy quotations.
Yes.
Um,
I mean, look around you.
I hope
This
my check's
screams,
coming soon.
this screams corporate, right?
Exactly.
This is such a
yeah.
corporate environment. We're
A
ticking all the
corporate
boxes.
podcast studio, and yeah, we'll have your check in the mail. We just got to confirm the address. We'll get it to your guy, and it'll be fine.
Gonna need your routing number and social security.
Right now.
But yeah, speaking of the love of lore, I am a lore lover. Oh God, I love just getting into the little nitty gritty details behind all that stuff, which is one of the reasons I absolutely love your channel. And not long ago, we recorded an episode, like you said, about Spelljammer. And I was like, oh, I think we have a pretty okay handle and guess on this. And then I watched a video that you made about a year ago, and my brain melted.
Turns out we didn't know what we were talking about.
We were so off base.
We spent an hour talking about how we felt about Spelljammer without actually knowing what Spelljammer was.
Yeah,
it was the
that's
most
hilarious.
entertaining
Nothing.
thing. But yeah, we're very excited to maybe talk to you about that because you're way more knowledgeable than we are.
I'd be happy to.
And I would also, you mentioned the drow thing earlier, your drow themed campaign.
Yeah.
That piques my interest too, because wasn't there a big drow fuss a while ago about drow stereotypes and rewriting their history? Was that part of the thought behind you doing that campaign?
No, not necessarily. So if the R.A. Salvatore, the guy who really defined the drow, because he wrote all the Dritz novels. He's like the most famous of drow.
Yeah.
And he established that like the goddess Lolth got her tendrils in the drow and has basically shaped them to rely on her and worship her, or you'll be excommunicated from drow society and then you'll just die. And so the interesting thing about Drist is that he was the drow that escaped, like Lolth's clutches. And so they're like, he literally just walked out of the city and everyone's like, well, the goddess is going to kill him, and she hasn't. And that's kind of like, it's more complicated than that. Like, that generally that's why they're like, who is this guy? Like, how did he do this? And it's not through, he's a Mary Sue and stuff like that. So with this rewriting of lore, the idea is that the drow are not all evil creatures, but instead, this little subsection underneath the Sword Coast is because Lolth has shaped them to rely on her. and that there are other pockets of drow that have their whole culture has risen up, but without Lolth's influence. So they're not necessarily like innately evil. And that's kind of where the people are upset, because older people are just like, well, drow have always been this for me. I don't like that you're changing it. It's like, well, they aren't changing anything with the drow, under the Sword Coast.
Right.
They literally just created like other pockets of drow that have evolved without that. And that it's kind of a fun idea to think of, like, what is there, like, what does drow culture look like when you don't have this evil goddess kind of manipulating it from the very beginning? So and then I guess the future R.A. Salvatore books are going to explore that more, these other drow cities that we didn't know existed. So yeah,
that'll be fun.
But I like the idea of the evil drow Underdark society, Menzo Berenzin, and that's why I wanted my campaign to be there, because I like the idea of like rising up in that house structure. And there is a 4th edition supplement book that is how do you run a game in Menzo Berenzin, and it has all of these really cool loyalty points and stuff. So you can go like head first and be like, I'm going to be super loyal and earn a bunch of loyalty points, and then I can use that in negotiations and stuff while you play the game. Or you could do the other side and be like, I'm going to be like Drist and kind of like get away from you. And both are very valid options, but take the game in a different direction. And so that was more or less, that was the inspiration for it when I was reading a lot of that book.
Yeah.
So.
Oh man, grinding rep. Remember those days?
I mean, then we're talking about structuring a game, especially. Did you say you're running that game, Jordan?
I want to, yeah.
Okay.
I have like a skeleton mapped out, but I haven't started running it. I don't have players or anything either yet.
From a game development standpoint, when you're dealing with a new implementing a system around reputation, is your intention to drive the player's behavior towards increasing the reputation? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you prevent them from only doing things that you want them to do because you set up this reputation system that hopefully is clear enough so that they understand it and are able to pursue, increasing their reputation. Yeah. But also, is it going to make it hard for them to do anything other than the actions that will give them reputation, Right.
Well, then you have to understand, like, is money important? Is reputation important? And we can talk about reputation as like a form of currency. So like ultimately they're like, what can I use reputation for? And I think the only way I would ever like feel like I'm forcing my players to play into that reputation is if I said, you only level up if you have X amount of reputation points. Because then they know, like, if I want to level up, I have to get those points. Yeah. But if I say, like, it doesn't matter, like, you'll level up regardless, which path does your character want to go? Like, do you want to follow the rules? Do you want to like rebel? Do you want to do it in secret? Do you want to be like a double agent? All of those are valid. And then they get to choose like what's the most interesting. And so initially when I was talking to a few players about it, we were talking about because there's like a whole bunch of different drow houses. And I was saying, like, do you guys want to all be from the same house? Like, do you want to be siblings in the same house that you're like eventually going to overthrow your mother and rule Menzo Berenzin kind of a thing? Or should you all be from different houses and for some reason they're pushing you together to go on missions, but you don't really know why? And so the mystery would be like, are we being sacrificed? Are we being used? Like, and there's a lot of you can betray other drow, but you can't get caught. And so it's this like treachery is good in the eyes of Lolth, but it is bad in the eyes of the drow if you get caught.
Yeah.
And so they'll punish you and kill you. But if you get away with it, it's like, that's the most clever drow like thing I've ever seen. And I think that was going to be another angle, is like, if you guys can figure out like treachery even within each other. And we were talking like, I don't want this to be an evil campaign, but a selfish campaign. Like, you guys are very much like, you're in it for yourself. So if it means like, hey, we all got to get back, I'm gonna like push this guy into a vat of acid or something and like run because he's slowing us down. I don't know. Like it's kind of like the zombie apocalypse. Like leave the one guy behind so the rest of us can get by. That guy doesn't want to be left behind.
Very
but
dog eat dog, survival of the fittest.
And I thought it'd be a fun idea because I haven't played a campaign like that. Was the idea, you know? So
yeah, because I think a lot of DMs think about reputation maybe in the back of their mind when they're running games, but they don't use it as a mechanic of the game.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would be very curious about something like that because on the one hand, it might make them behave in ways that are only driven towards that mechanic, but at the same time, it will at least force players to pick sides instead of being ambiguously neutral, which happens a lot in D&D campaigns, right?
Yeah.
You ride a little bit on one side, you ride a little bit on another side, and then you don't want to punish them too hard either way and cut off all their options because it would be unfair, or maybe what they did wasn't extreme enough to really sway the reputation with anybody.
Yeah.
But if there was more consequences,
I mean, you could do this exact same premise in Eberron with dragon marked houses. And like either a whole bunch of people from one dragon marked house and they're vying to get up in the ranks, or there are a bunch of dragon marked houses that are forcing you to like work together. But it's like, I don't necessarily like you because you undercut my profits for this. And my, you know, I don't know, like you could use it in other things. This also isn't a full fleshed out thing. It's just an idea that I've put together, but
And I mean,
It's
there was no
strong.
mechanic, but in that campaign that we played, I mean, by the end of it, your like Church of the Silver Flame rep just like dropped to zero, right?
We were screwed.
Right?
That was
like
cool.
It was
That was really cool.
like actually it was quite high for a long time until near the end, and then it was like right clicking and like leave guild. You know, and then it's gone. There's like no reputation, right? So
so now like we're not welcome there where we used to be as a group, you know, because of his influence. And that was cool. That was awesome. Like, and I think overall, I always go for what makes an interesting story, and I was like, that's interesting, and so I want to see more of that, you know. So,
quick question: what do you think Zix is doing now?
Oh man, that's a good question. Well, we left off killing a bad guy in a ship. You made that cool 3D terrain stuff. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was too much work.
I don't think
I would not have done that again.
I don't think I've gone back to the demon wastes or wherever I came from. I think I'm probably still wondering why I'm there and why. I don't know, maybe looking for more of those black holes or something. Yeah, trying to figure out like where are those manifesting?
Yeah.
And how do I prevent them from coming back? Because I guess like I don't know. I won't say spoilers and stuff because maybe we'll play that again. But
maybe
the idea of like where my bugs come from, because I was a swarm host ranger, is kind of like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is it like a warlock thing? Did he make a pact with someone? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Why does he have this influence over them, and why are they interested in him? And so, he's probably trying to shut those portals down. In all honesty.
I mean, I don't want to get into just talking about insider information from our campaign on the podcast because people have no reference for it. But that was a wonderful
It's on YouTube.
time.
Go watch it.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of it's cataloged, except for the final episode. So sucks to me.
Is the final episode not cataloged? There's one missing in there, I know.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. Go figure it out.
A couple of them are out.
And if you're a Patreon, apparently there was a one-on-one episode we did, me and Kuko. And I think you released that as like a patron-only podcast.
I might have.
That was fun. So that was my first one-on-one DM thing. I was like, this is surprisingly really cool because you get all the attention. I was like, this is awesome.
Isn't it awesome?
Yeah.
You did that for our other Eberron campaign as well. You had all the session zeros as one-on-one sessions.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. But that was a lot of work, too. I think there's easier ways to do that now, too.
Definitely.
But every time I run a campaign, I mean, I'm sure it's the same way with you, Falcon, and with you, Jordan, is like every time you run a campaign, I feel like you streamline and figure out and learn more about, not necessarily to like how to make the game better, but you start, like you have a better ratio of like the amount of work and effort and the outcome of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like you hone in what works for you, what usually works for your players. And so you can start experimenting with other fun stuff like reputation instead of starting from scratch every single time.
Yeah.
Which I tend to do sometimes too. But okay, so we've been chatting for a little bit. I wanted to ask Jordan a little bit about Spelljammer, but first, you know, it'd be fun. Let's recap.
Yeah.
Let's recap.
Okay.
Falcon, what's Spelljammer?
Spelljammer is D&D in space, where you get on these sandwich ships that are 2 pieces of bread and peanut butter, and no magic works inside of them. And you travel from... Can I incorporate a piece of knowledge that I learned?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're not worlds, they're crystal spheres.
Ooh. That
so you
sounds
travel between them.
More accurate.
And fight space clowns and flying monkeys.
So, magic is trapped in grapes, right?
Yes.
And you gotta squeeze them out.
What?
And then you bottle,
Does any of this
and
ring
then you
true?
bottle it up, and then you get it on a ship, and then you sell it across the galaxy.
Oh, yeah. I hear you can
Spelljammer.
do that with different kinds of berries, too.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they might even have spell marmalade made from oranges and other
Mhm.
fruits of that nature.
Oh,
Yeah.
I understand now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Mhm.
and the
Took me a
hair
bit.
product, spell gel.
Spell gel.
Yeah. I've
Uh-huh.
heard about spell gel.
Uh-huh.
In fact, I've used it a time or two.
Mm-hmm.
Spell
Yep.
butter.
Mm-hmm.
Spell
And then
butter.
I say spell butter, and people are just like butter. I was like, no, it's never mind. It's lost on you.
So Jordan, how accurate was that?
I mean, there are crystal spheres.
So the one thing you added in extra?
Yeah.
Could you all right, so we're both real dummies. And you know what? This is kind of the same thing that happened to me with Eberron. I knew nothing about Eberron before the newest book came out, and I just went all in on it. And I'm gonna probably do the same thing with Spelljammer. I'm like waiting for it to come out. Once it comes out, I'm probably gonna jump right in, but with zero historical context of what it is. So can you explain to me, a newbie, in like a couple sentences, like what is Spelljammer?
Yeah. Okay. So Spelljammer is D&D in space.
Mm-hmm.
The word Spelljammer is a lot of different things. So a Spelljammer is not only the ship that you take to go into space, like if you are taking any kind of ship, if you turn it into a spaceship, it's then a Spelljammer. So then you can go there. It's also the act of traveling through space, which is spelljamming. It's the name of the setting, and then it's also the name of this like mythical ship that exists called the Spelljammer that exists out there. And so Spelljammer has a lot of different means. It was marketed as, what if we do D&D in space? I think they took the name Windjammer, which is like a type of boat, and then we're like, well, what if it's powered by magic? So every Spelljammer ship has a helm, and a helm is like a throne that you sit on. And then you put, for lack of a better term, like spell slots, you put magical energy into the helm, and that makes your spelljamming ship go.
Cool. So in
So
Eberron,
wizards
you
sit
have an
down and they-
elemental, and then in Spelljammer, you're the elemental.
Yeah.
Okay.
So wizards sit down and they'll say, okay, I'm going to use my like 4th level spell. They put it into the chair, and then the chair can go, for
cool.
X amount of however much
And
energy
the
you
chair
put in.
can go. So you could have a Spelljammer that's just a chair.
Well,
It's like the
yeah.
sofa that you see the
Oh my
hillbillies driving
God.
around.
Probably
on the
run out of
streets.
air though.
You would, yeah. So I was going to say, I mentioned that I watched your video before, and it was incredibly informative. I would recommend you guys go check it out. Do you have a new one with the new release?
No, not yet, because I don't know anything about it. So
Okay, cool. So a new one should be coming.
It's a series. Like I have like
Yeah.
7 videos on Spelljammer. So yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I
once
watched
the new book comes out, I'm gonna figure out, or I'll update them and be like, hey, this is what they changed. So
Perfect. But I watched the opener of that series probably a couple weeks ago, right after we filmed that one episode, and yeah, everybody gets their own little personal like bubble of air. So I'm thinking, if it's just a chair, you're not going very far.
yeah, so there's no air. They called it wild space. It's just space. Like you should think of it like that. But in space, there's no oxygen, there's no air. And but you have a gravitational bubble around you, or all objects do. So because it is a fantasy system in a space setting, they wanted to make it not overly complex. Like, well, how do I breathe? How do I do this? So when your ship leaves the atmosphere, it takes a bubble of oxygen with it. And that oxygen will deplete over X amount, but the idea is that you dip down to other planets, you refresh your oxygen bubble, and then you go back up. So if I get thrown from my ship, I have like a little bubble around me that will last X amount of minutes or hours or something. And this is how people are able to like land on asteroids and go explore asteroids and stuff and have like a breathable atmosphere is the idea. So that's where you're talking about. Like everything has a gravitational plane to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the solar systems are all encased in these giant crystal bubbles. And you can't break through, but there are magic spells that will open a portal that allows you to go in through the crystal sphere, through the shell to get on the other side. The other side is a weird substance called phlogiston that is like a
sounds like an over-the-counter
medicine.
medicine.
It's a weird miasma of very flammable material. So you have to douse all of your flames, and you can't cast any fire and stuff, because if you go there and the smallest spark will just do this huge explosion that destroys most of your ship. So people have to like fly through the phlogiston dark, or use magical lights and stuff like that. And then you find another crystal sphere, you open a portal, you go in, and the phlogiston doesn't follow you for some reason, and you're there. For 5th edition, they said that they're going to get rid of the phlogiston and combine it with the astral plane. So you actually like go to the edge of the solar system and you break into the astral plane. And I think that's what you're going to be sailing through instead of this weird, like highly combustible miasma.
And
I kind of like the idea of that miasma, though.
Well, you can bring it back. That's your good.
Well, I think another thing that they were trying to do between, and this might be what you're describing, the difference between old Spelljammer and 5e Spelljammer is, aren't they really trying to push that all worlds and universes can be connected?
Oh yeah, that was another big subject that we were talking about.
Yeah, they want a multiverse of stuff. So it's the idea that I can leave the Forgotten Realms and go visit Eberron, or I can leave Eberron and go visit Kugo's homebrew world of whatever, or maybe an alternate timeline, Eberron or Forgotten Realms or something. So that's kind of the idea. It's also mixing together the Planescape, which is another campaign setting that has heavily influenced 5e, where we have like Sigil and there's all these different planes of existence, like the plane of fire, the plane of whatever, and they all kind of orbit around the prime material plane where everything takes place. Well,
I want to go to the
Spelljammer
was
like, Spelljammer was just
Starbucks
the
baristas.
prime material plane, and then the idea was that there might be a plane of fire, but you don't get to it from Spelljammer. Spelljammer literally was like, it was very like mathematical in a sense. Like there's whole star charts of how to get from crystal sphere to crystal sphere and stuff. So,
and this was 80s Spelljammer, right? That's when it was mathematical.
It was late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay. So yeah. All right. So it sounds like in the newest one,
AD&D, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, before 3rd edition. So
it sounds like it's going to be less about all that technological stuff and more about imagination.
Yeah, I think because the like when you look up at the night sky and see stars, you're not actually seeing stars. You're seeing portals to the plane of radiance on the edge of the crystal sphere. Like they had weird answers for everything. So I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. Maybe those are maybe those stars are the portals to the astral plane for 5th edition Spelljammer.
Okay.
So we'll see. But I think the general gist of it, I have a spelljamming helm attached to my boat, and my boat can lift off into the sky and fly off into space. That's still gonna probably remain.
Okay,
and
cool.
The oxygen rules and stuff like that, I think, and so yeah,
oxygen rules.
It does. I breathe it every day. It's really good.
We're doing sofas.
We're doing sofas?
Yeah, we're doing chairs.
Spelljammer helm on sofas.
All right.
We're doing chairs.
Yeah, we'll do a full artificer game, which I realize I've been saying that word wrong for months now.
Wrong?
I fixed it. Yeah, I've
What
been
the
saying
heck?
artificer.
Okay.
It's artificer, like artifact, not articaft. So
Okay.
that's on me. But anyway, we'll do a full artificer game. We'll build spacesuits, right? Because we can do that. It's our world. And then we'll fly sofas.
I mean, why don't you get like a helm of water breathing, and then just like wrap your head with a bubble of water and then go into space and you'll be able to breathe the water. So
That's an excellent workaround too.
And you're like one of those fish people. You're like one of those.
Convoluted.
You're like one of those fish people races. the koa or whatever they're called.
Kuatoa, yeah.
Kuatoa, and then you put a fishbowl over your own head, and then you sit in the chair, and then you fly around in space, breathing the water.
We need you to go left. I don't understand it.
I don't like you.
I don't think I would earlier. This is your captain speaking. But this is what we heard.
It reminds me of those old point and click Space Quest adventures from those old Sierra games. Those like it's just gonna be a wacky version of that with dice rolling. We definitely plan on at least doing another like mini arc of some sort. I would love to do. I think my sweet spot is like 6 sessions. I would love to do like a 6-session mini arc, and then that way, I don't know how many of our friends are gonna enjoy. I feel like a lot of our friends are gonna enjoy this.
Yeah, probably
this book. It's space, you know.
Yeah,
no, it should be fun. Yeah.
So
there's and like original Spelljammer had all these fun rules of rolling random solar systems. So you could roll a bunch of stuff and then be like, okay, there's like 5 planets, 2 of them are inhabited, one of them's like a giant, I don't know, like ball of meat, and you're like, why? I'm like, I don't know, that's the thing. And so adventures can happen.
Okay, DM, start filling those worlds up, DM. Isn't this great?
I guess it's the same idea.
Generation.
Isn't this great? Start thinking.
I guess it's that same idea of like, I've got an airship or something, and I'm going from like city to city because you kind of like, but you're just jumping from planet to planet. But it would be really funny to be like, we're going to do a Spelljammer campaign, and then it all takes place on some planet. You're like, we've never actually Spelljammed. We're just kind of, this is a really interesting planet. So.
Yeah.
The entire arc centers around building your Spelljammer.
I was gonna say it's not a session 0, it's a campaign 0 before Spelljammer starts.
Oh man.
I don't know. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it.
I am too. It's such a quirky setting, but I like my Dungeons and Dragons to be kind of silly.
Yeah.
And so I'm completely for this. I think there's like realist people that are just like, I don't know, it breaks the laws of physics. I'm like, but so does magic.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine.
I'm really looking forward to it for that reason as well. Because I loved our Eberron campaign, but because of the actions that you guys took and all the things that happened, it got really political. And I think I also favor goofiness with moments of seriousness that happen naturally, as opposed to seriousness where you have to try to break it up once in a while because it gets too serious. And I love the idea of a campaign being a little bit more Acquisitions Incorporated-esque or like Futurama, right? Like there's some serious storytelling in Futurama.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come at the expense of the entire thing being serious.
Right.
And so I'm really looking forward to
because those characters are still lovable.
Exactly.
And like Ack Inc., those characters are lovable, but like and you want to see them succeed, you know. But and there could be some good stuff. And then something like Futurama's great too because it's episodic.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like we're gonna sit down today. We're gonna do like you said, like 6 sessions, and you finish like a little arc, and it's fun. And then you could come back to those characters later if you wanted.
And time could pass, or no time, or it could be in the past. It could be literally in the past. You could do lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, that's actually I either read about this or heard about this a while ago. That's why animated series are so popular, even for adults like here in the States. Whereas animes specifically, we're talking about the different styles, right? Not just the art style, but like the storytelling style. Animes are more like campaigns where they arc fuck. I knocked something over. Anyway,
I don't know what you're watching.
Visual humor. We love our like visual humor on the podcast.
Yeah. They're like campaigns where they extend over long times and the story is told and you get to know these characters as they grow. But which one was it? It was, I think Cowboy Bebop was very successful in the States because even though there is an overarching story, it's very episodic, like you said. where
And they always
each,
they were always hungry in
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop. It's like, how are we going to make money this week? And I think
Right.
that's a perfect D&D campaign because
Uh-huh.
everyone had a cool backstory. You kind of knew, but you kind of didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then overall, it's like we got to work together because we're all hungry. Let's
And
go.
honestly, Cowboy Bebop could have been a Spelljammer campaign
Yeah.
in that style. Oh my goodness.
Do
Oh
it.
my goodness.
Never seen it.
I'm realizing something about it. You've never seen it?
No.
That's okay.
Thank you.
I know a
Well,
lot of people would be like, "You what?"
That's okay. Give them our email.
Oh yeah, our email is podcastplus1mail@gmail.com. It's all spelled out individually, word for word. There are no plus signs or numbers. Podcastplus1mail@gmail.com. If you have any questions, send them in there. If you have any comments about how we're dumb or how you also have never seen Cowboy Bebop, which is okay, let us know. Or, you know what? I'll say this for the next one. It is okay, Jordan. We're not going to shame anybody here. Not to their face. We'll talk about them after the show's over.
Yeah. We do like an end of podcast news station thing where music starts rolling and we keep talking and playing with paperwork after, so we can talk trash then. And then the one
Good show.
thing I wanted to talk about with you, Jordan, while you were on here, because I don't know when we'd love to have you on again soon, but I don't know when that's going to happen. So I got to ask you now. 6th edition.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Is it coming?
Yes.
How soon do you think it's coming?
2024.
And then how much different do you think it's going to be?
It'll be very similar because I think they want it to be backwards compatible. That is my
Interesting.
idea. So whether that is a 5.5, because like all the 3rd edition material still worked with 3.5 is the idea. Even Paizo, they make Pathfinder. Their Pathfinder 2nd edition, they made it similar enough to work with their old adventures. And I think that's huge. As D&D gets more popular, there are these older adventures like Out of the Abyss and Tomb of Annihilation and stuff where they're like, oh, well, I kind of want to play this one. Oh, is this not compatible with this new player's handbook I bought? I think they're just going to refine the rules a little bit. And I'm wondering if it will get a numerical value. I guess the community probably will put it on there. Or if Wizards will really double down on their marketing and just be like, we're just going to call it like D&D Evolutions or D&D New Hope or something like that. So.
TM. Disney has entered the chat.
Yeah. Oh,
wait, can I say that? I'll bleep that out.
But yeah, it's the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons on 2024. And I think that year they're going to have their big book release announcements of the next edition of D&D. So.
That's that's probably very accurate.
Perfect.
That's a guess. I don't actually know anything. I don't hear anything, but we think about it a lot, obviously, us in these tabletop circles. So
yeah, and it's nice
the
because
cool thing is like lore will always be there. So there you go. You can check out the channel anytime.
Cool stuff. Anything else you want to talk about today, Falcon?
Yeah, what's the pH? I gotta know. I've been wondering for like a year and a half.
All
right, so there's your answer.
Yeah, it's just silent.
That's actually a wonderful answer. Hey, Jordan, do you want to shout out all your stuff that you're doing on the internet, your socials, your channels, whatever you want to shout out?
Sure. Well, I'm Jordan with a PH in the middle on everything. So if you find me, well, except TikTok because I'm not on TikTok. But if you find me on Instagram or Twitter, I'm most active on like Twitter and Instagram and stuff. And then obviously YouTube. You can find me on YouTube.
Hey, well, surprise. There's probably going to be one funny clip in this podcast, so you're going to be on TikTok.
Let's go. He's making it. That's my breakthrough.
All right.
So you want to do, real quick, just want to say thank you to our actual real sponsor. It's not guns. Okay. Gamer Supps. Use code +1 for some fine, delicious energy powder. Stop chugging all those energy drinks in a can for $3 at a time and get yourself some delicious peach tea.
Yeah.
Caffeine caffeine free. Make popsicles out of it for the summertime. It's getting hot.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh my God.
And then give them our email one more time so they can write in.
Our email is podcast+1mail@gmail.com, all spelled out. Give us your questions, your comments. If you think we're idiots, let us know. If you think we're great, let us know.
Wonderful. So, from Jordan, Falcon, at Kugo the Mighty, it's been a wonderful time seeing you. Goodbye.
May the Spelljammer be with you.
Yes.
Live long.
Keep on jamming. All right, let's pretend to play with... Which is so funny because of the hippo. The
Jim Bartholomew.
Jim Bartholomew was... I didn't even make that connection because I didn't know anything about Spelljammer when I made him, and yet that's where he's from. Yeah, so we can pretend.
Can you believe this idiot's never seen Cowboy Bebop?